Welcome to Bloom Today. We have a heartfelt show for you. We're going to be discussing looking for love in all the wrong places.
Hi, I'm Paula Wallace, president of Bloom in the Dark, and this is
Ginny Priz, the single-handed serenity coach. Welcome to Bloom Today, where we talk about internal and external brokenness and how you can heal,
so that you can use the fertilizer of your past to bloom today. Hey everybody, so glad to have you join us. Today we're talking about looking for love in all the wrong places. And we've tried that, haven't we?
Oh, I've looked for love in a whole lot of places that I never should have looked. It's been a bit of a jungle and a struggle to figure out where the right places are. What about you?
Well, I've learned crazy lessons about thinking that any love was better than no love, even if it wasn't love at all.
Absolutely.
Because attention, bad attention, any kind of attention was better than
No
being
attention.
ignored, you know, no attention at all. And one of the craziest times that showed up for me was thinking that a codependent friendship with a best friend, that wasn't hurting anybody, that wouldn't cause any problems. Until that codependent relationship actually brought the best friend not just into my home or my life, but into my marriage. And you start realizing that it's not okay just because it's a best friend. If it's not a healthy relationship, it can bring someone into your marriage where that then hands off to temptation for your spouse to have an affair and to go off on an entirely different path where it's not really harmless. Looking for love in friendship that way is not really a problem, suddenly becomes what ends your marriage.
That is an extreme result, if you will, of codependency. I know
Which is a love addiction, right?
Absolutely, it is a love addiction, and I mean, I've had so many different kinds of love addictions with just friends, let alone boyfriends, and what it ended up being for me a lot of times was I expected people to read my mind. If this was a great relationship, or if they were really a good friend, then you should be able to know exactly what I'm thinking, what I need, when I need it. You should know when I'm feeling down and know how to make me feel better magically. And if we spend enough time together, then you would be interested in reading those cues, because I was so good at reading those cues. So I thought everyone else should be as well. Why isn't everyone else picking up on my cues when I'm trying so hard to pick up on theirs? But what ended up happening was when they didn't pick up on my cues, I would shut them out a lot of times without any kind of closure, any kind of discussion or trying to work on it or understand. I just really thought, you know what? If you can't read my mind, then I'm going to be done. I'm going to walk away.
Then you don't love me enough.
Yeah, you must not love me enough, yeah.
So being a chameleon means everybody else needs to be a chameleon too. But do you know how hard it is for somebody to reflect something that isn't even solid? So if I don't know who I am, if I haven't developed my own identity, if I'm not solid in who I am as a person, it's hard for you to reflect that.
Right.
One way or the other.
Pick up on those cues, right.
So you end up having this whole mess, invisible mirror kind of thing where nobody can see anything. And it just gets to be a scrambled,
jumbled mess. Totally.
Yeah, I've been there on that stuff too, and it's so not a good idea when we don't have a solid sense of identity because we're looking for somebody else to create that identity, or loving somebody to fill that need for love and identity. And it ends up showing up in so many different dysfunctional types of relationships and ways.
It doesn't even need to be personal. It can be professional as well. You know, oh my gosh, if my boss doesn't approve of what I'm doing at work, then there must be something wrong with me.
You have no value if you're not getting the accolades and approval and the opportunities, right?
I'm starting from square one, because if you don't approve of this one thing that I did, then I must not be worth anything. So now I have to rebuild or in my own mind, I have to rebuild all of the trust and the good things, because if you don't approve once, then forget it. You have rejected me entirely.
So our identity ends up being tied to other people's opinions and other people's treatment and other people's feelings, which if the way people treat you is abusive, then that morphs into, if that's where I find my validation is in you and you're abusing me, then you are validating my brokenness and my lack of value and my worthlessness.
Absolutely.
Which then makes it so much easier for me to know I am worthless and have no value, and all the victim thinking that comes along with that. But I don't think that's what God had in mind in relationships for some reason.
No, I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's definitely not what he had in mind. He doesn't want us to be walking around looking for love any other place but to him first. That's so key, but that's what I never got growing up, or never really truly understood. It's not that I wasn't told this repeatedly, I'm sure, but I just didn't get it or understand that the personal relationship and going from my head to my heart, how that needed to change in my life.
So if I want to have better relationships outside, the first thing I need to do is start working on myself. Absolutely. To start going to a relationship with God, because he kind of designed me with a God-sized hole in my soul, where he's the only one that's actually going to be able to fill that space, and no addiction is going to be able to fill it. No other relationship with another human is going to be able to fill it. My identity isn't going to be fixed by who I marry or who's my best friend or what I'm doing to try to distract or fill that hole. So I've got to start out by things like understanding how to treat myself the way God says.
That you deserve to be treated. And I mean, we don't get what we deserve because every sin requires death, right? But because Jesus was crucified on the cross, what God says we deserve now is grace and mercy and all of the things that come with it, where we don't have to be separated from him anymore. So for me, in order to even start to understand this, instead of just getting it from here to here with some miraculous intervention from the Lord, I actually had to start treating myself the way I thought God wanted me to be treated. Because he loved me unconditionally, then I should be treated this way. I had to learn sort of from the outside in before I could start to accept it.
So you couldn't be hating yourself.
Right.
You needed to be loving yourself. And I got raised that might be really selfish. And instead, I started realizing when Jesus talks about the two most important commandments, he talks about loving God first and then loving your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
If I'm hating myself, it is really, really hard to love my neighbor.
Right.
I have to first take God's love for me and apply it to myself so that I can then share that love with my neighbor or with somebody else. And Leviticus 19:18, of course, with the 10 Commandments, talks about loving your neighbor as yourself because God made that a part of his concrete 10 top rules for living, was having to love others, but in the way that we have then taken God's love to us. And that's where we start changing the balance of unhealthy relationships to healthy relationships, right?
Isn't that amazing? He created us to be us.
I get to be me. Woo!
But then once we can have that identity of who we are and loving ourselves, we can then teach others how to treat us. Teach others that they need to treat us as God would, with respect, coming to us. If they have a problem with us, if God has a problem with us and what we're choosing, he comes to us, he convicts us, but he does it out of love, truth in love. He doesn't do it with a reprimand or you need to do this or you should have done this or should have done that. And
shoulding all over yourself.
Shoulding all over yourself. Shoulding all over yourself. Yeah. That's not the way he works. He says, excuse me, you need to look at this area. And he does that with the kindness. And if people aren't treating us with that love and respect and that kindness, then we can build a boundary to say, I'm sorry, I'm going to hang up the phone on you now because I don't need to have this abusive treatment, I'm going to walk away from you. Or just communicating, this isn't something that I want to continue talking about in this way. You can come back to me when you've calmed down.
Right. And then by not accepting disrespect doesn't mean we lash back, doesn't mean we fight back.
Sure.
Turning the other cheek is passive, but it's also where we don't continue to present ourselves and put ourselves in positions unnecessarily where there is continuing harm or damage. And by that, we're showing and demonstrating respect that God has for them as well as for us. And that gives us the chance to start digging into deeper levels of relationships where it's not just superficial, it's not just need-based, it's actually mutually balanced relationships in friendships, in marriages, in relationship with God, where the more whole I am, then the more I actually have to give and accept in a relationship, because I'm not trying to suck somebody else dry, and I'm not having to let them suck me dry either, right?
Absolutely. In Matthew 7:6, it says, "Do not give what is holy to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces." That's pretty intense, but I think that that's, in my past, it's been absolutely true. As soon as I let people cross those boundaries, then they feel they have the right to take what they want or treat me as they want. But if I can, again, build those healthy boundaries, what happens is those swine are not going to come after me anymore. It's amazing how when people don't respect your boundaries, they will actually feel like they don't need anything else from you, and they can be separate from you. So you're left with the people that actually love you and respect you and are willing to respect your boundaries.
Which is awesome in the close relationships. And the funny thing is, like in Proverbs 22:24, it says, "Make no friendship with a man given to anger, nor go with a wrathful man." Or woman. Yes. It doesn't matter who they are.
Yeah.
It's clear about not putting yourself in a position. And it's not that you don't deal with people that are that don't have that self-control and don't know how to treat you well in social circles or in work circles or whatever, where you don't have control. This is talking about the people that you choose to do life with, that are part of your inner circle, that are in your family relationships or whatever, where it's hugely important. But it specifically says don't do that, because there is damage that keeps happening to us where we're actually surrounding ourselves or thinking it's okay to have our 5 closest people be hurting us or doing us harm or be unhealthy relationships. And that's not at all what God's heart is for us.
You are correct.
That sounds awesome. And we have got a very special guest today, don't we?
Yes, and she has a story that definitely talks about looking for love in all of the wrong places and then finding it in the right place. And she is an author.
Awesome.
And a speaker and a worship leader as well. She has a beautiful voice and is a songwriter. Please welcome Tammy Daniel. Come on in.
Yay, Tammy. Jenny, can you give her a hand?
I can absolutely give her a hand. Tammy, here is your hand.
Oh, thank you so much, Jenny.
You're very welcome.
Kind of you.
Anytime, really.
Above.
You need a hand, I am here for you.
I love it.
It's so awesome to have you here. You look beautiful.
Here.
Yes, welcome to the kitchen.
Yes, I love it. I'm not much of a cook, but I like to sit here and talk.
We like to hang out and talk too. And while we're sitting here talking, we don't have to be cooking. And what's really cool is this is not a cooking show. So.
Hey, thank you, Lord.
Amen.
I would be a bad guest.
But you are a great guest for your book thus far. Would you tell us a little bit about it?
This is just my journey of early on had a wrong relationship. I married at 19. I was looking for love. My dad died when I was young, and that took that need to be loved away. And so I was married young. Yeah, this is my book. I was married young and immediately fell in love, and then it just didn't feel right. Everything felt wrong. And I knew all the things to look for, and I saw all of the red signs, not to go there, but it just felt good. you know, finally someone will love me. You know, I deserve to be the way I deserve to be loved. But it didn't work out that way. You know, my husband was, I found out 10 years into the marriage that he was involved in pornography. So for the first 10 years, I went to counseling to try to figure out what was wrong with me. What was so wrong that no one wanted to love me.
Wow.
And so, you know, you have all of that inside of you trying to figure out, I must not be very good, you know, and that does carry on into all of your relationships, honestly.
Very personal.
Yes.
And then bringing that shame or that brokenness onto yourself when it's not only you that's in the relationship.
So, yeah, I found out that he was watching pornography, and at the time I was young. I had been raised in a very conservative background where you didn't talk about these kind of things, so I didn't talk to anybody about it. And I thought, well, it's just one video, I'll rip it up and there it goes. But it began to show itself over and over and over, and it would progress each time. And my husband would seek help, and it'd be okay for a while. But then when he felt pressure, that's where he went. You know, he had not totally given it to Christ, who we know is the only one who can break the chains of an addiction.
Sure.
And so our family suffered, you know, because of that internally.
And then what did you do that to try and help that? Because obviously you were in a whole lot of pain. And what did you turn to try and alleviate that?
So I started talking to friends and thought, you know, I need help. I was in a great place in ministry. I poured my life into ministry, and that's where I kind of hid. But then I thought, I need help. I want my marriage to be like my friends' marriages. You know, I was kind of jealous a little bit. I wanted what they had. And I knew I didn't have that. So I began talking to someone that was a friend, and it should have been okay, but I crossed the lines. He crossed the lines.
This was a man that you were speaking to.
And I was married, and so was he. And it seemed like I trusted him. You know, everything would be okay. But before long, he was saying, I know how you feel. And I feel that way too. And, you know, you deserve to be loved. And it felt good to hear those things. And so I just let my guard down a little at a time, you know. And before I knew it, emotionally I was involved with this man, looking forward to all of his phone calls, looking forward to his emails, just any kind of connection, longing for it. And so I began to realize this is not good, but I didn't know how to let go of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something of a love addiction, right? Again, that we've been talking about, where you feel like you're not receiving it from God or from others, so you're going to look for it wherever you can.
Right.
And then how did God come into that?
So, well, in the midst of all of that, my husband decided he wanted a divorce, you know, and I didn't know how to deal with that. The emotional relationship ended, so I felt like I was just in this hole of despair that would honestly never end. I would get up and live each day, and I would go to work, and I would exist, but that would be as good as it would be. And why would God ever want to use me? I had totally messed up myself and had all of this heartache. He doesn't use people like that, right?
Well, or not. I mean, we're here.
He came to me in that pit of despair and said, he gave me 1 Peter 5:10, after you've suffered a little while, the God of all grace will confirm, strengthen, establish, and restore you. And it gave me hope, which was what I was lacking during all of those years. And he began to show me a little at a time, you know, I do want to use you. I am going to give you life. There is abundant life after mistakes. There's abundant life after pain. And so I went to counseling for a year myself and became healthy.
You worked on yourself first.
I worked on myself to realize what, you know, I knew I was lacking in that area because 2 men, you know, that had hurt me, but I had gone towards those 2 men, you know, looking for love. So I went through counseling and realized that there was hope and that I was not alone. And so then God began to pour into me and began to use me to pour into others through all of that.
You wrote a song for that, didn't you?
I did.
Can you read those lyrics?
So
to
during
us?
the middle of all of that mess, this is how I felt. And I feel like that probably you can relate with this too. Today, Lord, I can't say your name out loud. I have no strength. This storm is overtaking me. I know your word has promised to make firm the weak, but I can't see your plan, and I'm too weak to stand. I'm in the eye of the storm, and I see the waves crashing down on me, but this time they're too strong. All hope seems gone. Then suddenly, I feel your arms surrounding me. I'm still in the storm, but I'm not alone. My God is holding on to me. Then he says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. Nor will the flames even scorch you, or the rivers overflow you. For I am the Lord your God, and I will walk with you. You're in the eye of the storm. You feel the waves crashing down on you. This time they are too strong. All hope seems gone. But my child, I have my arms surrounding you. You're still in the storm, but not alone. I am holding on to you. And that is pretty much where I was for a long time, just in the middle of the winds are swirling around me, and I cannot get over them. But then the last part of the song says, you have promised never to leave or forsake me. I'm your child. So even though this storm still rages, I'll keep my eyes on the rock of ages, and I know victory will come. And that's what I learned in the middle of it all, is that victory was coming for me, and that God was using me in the middle of the storm. And it would be a while. You all know how it is. It takes a while to get out of a big storm like that.
Yes.
And so, it rages for quite a while.
Yes. And that song, I believe, is available on your website, correct?
Yes. It's there. You can go listen to it.
Is that TammyDaniel.com?
TammyDaniel.com is where it is.
That's
There's 4
fantastic.
songs there to listen to.
Wonderful, yes. And beautiful, beautiful voice.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
I love to sing.
I'm just blown away by the quality, and I love the recording as well on the website.
Good.
And I
So
believe that
glad.
you have another talented singer in your family, or have had.
Yes, our little dog. So I teach piano. I teach piano and voice in my home, and so a lot of times, I go in there and play the piano or sing. Well, this little dog gets under the piano and just howls every time. She hates music. We're like, she's in the wrong home. We all like music.
Are you sure
But-
she's not just trying to sing along?
Maybe so. Maybe she's singing, but it's like you have to put her out in order to sing.
In order to get everything done, right?
Yes, it's hilarious.
So
We have cats, so we don't have the chance to see in our own home how dogs are. I know
yeah.
they're much
Yeah.
more interactive and make their presence known so much more. Cats have a tendency to be, a little bit more behind the scenes.
yeah, they don't howl as much as the dogs might.
Yeah, I always just say a prayer. Sometimes I'll do the Facebook Lives where I sing a song. I think I'm going to share a song today. So put the dogs out and just say a quick prayer. Lord, please don't let them bark or howl or scratch or ruin the song.
Tammy, could you tell us what you are thankful for the most, or where you saw God's fingerprint in your story?
I'm thankful that He taught me, and looking at all of these things and looking for love, and even after the divorce and coming through all of that, I still felt like I needed someone. And God confirmed to me, I'm all you need. And when He showed me that, when I got the message loud and clear, that in my life, someday God might choose to give me a husband, I don't know. But if He doesn't, it's okay, because He became the love of my life. And when you can get to that place in your story where He's enough,
Yes.
then you've reached what you need. You can go further with Him and see what He has to give you, all the blessings He has to give you on top of that.
And a healthy relationship with God is so much better than an unhealthy relationship
yes,
with anybody else.
goodness.
It's better than a healthy relationship with anybody else, but it's really better than an unhealthy relationship with anybody
Yes, absolutely.
It took me quite a few years after my divorce to be able to work through who I was and how I had value. I did what I called serial dating. It was one guy at a time, but guy after guy after guy, trying to find that sense of value and worth in that. And finally, it was like, wait a second. This isn't adding good things to my life. This is actually adding more brokenness and more pain and more frustration. It's not healing anything. It's actually doing more damage.
Yeah.
And realizing that, wait a second, I might need to stop that to get away from the distractions, get away from the damage, and start digging into who I am in Christ.
Right.
And doing that did the same thing like you're saying, as I found my identity in Him and He started filling that empty place. Then it wasn't about whether or not I had somebody. It was about feeling whole and feeling like I had value and that I was truly loved without needing a person
Right.
to validate or give me value or that. And it's just such a shift, isn't it?
It really is.
It's like-
It's like an overnight thing, you know, like I gotta have somebody, and it's like, I'm okay, you know.
Was there a specific moment where you felt you were finally blooming, as we say?
Yeah, I think when I came to the place to not be praying, you know, this is really funny, but when I prayed every day, I was like, Lord, please give me the right husband and I was like, all these prayers about this man, you know, and suddenly it became, and thank you for this day, and thank you for my family, and there was no prayer there. And I know that sounds strange.
Oh,
there was no need.
It sounds normal.
There was no need there. You know, God had fulfilled everything in me, you know, over just a little short time. I had been praying, God, take the desire away. And my girlfriends were too, because they were having to hear about all of these, you know, men and the need for them. And so God took that away and filled me with, you know, just more longing for Him, and my life is just so much fuller in that. I'm able to pour into other women and to share that with them.
And you have more time for ministry, you have more time for family when you're not out there trying to make something happen and
God shifts
find
your
the right.
priorities. You know, when you're surrendered to Him, that's where my focus is on my ministry.
Right.
And God, how much more can I do for you today? What do you have for me? You know.
Yeah, Paul does talk about if you are unmarried, then you can be working even more so for Christ. You have that extra time, that extra energy. You can sleep better at night. I know I certainly sleep better having a nice big bed all to myself and not having to share my time and all kinds of stuff. So I don't have to worry about where I'm going for holidays. So I mean, it's just kind of streamlines a lot of things. I don't have to worry about dinner or making it for everybody. So Tammy, thank you for being here. We want to make sure that you know that you have been awarded the ex-victim of the week.
Oh, I love it.
And this is yours to take home.
And see, the ex-victim in the necklace matches my tattoo.
I love it.
We just got to show people that, because they asked me what the tattoo means, and it actually has a little V for victim, because whether you're a victim of your own mindset and your own neediness, you're a victim of addictions, you're a victim of other people.
Right.
It's about giving it to Christ, which the X is the ichthyos, so that you can actually start blooming, which is the middle of it. And our chocolates and tissues, which are traditional. And that gets us all together, so we use the fertilizer of our past to bloom today.
Then visit Bloom Today's Facebook group for deeper conversation.